So hey guys, today I wanted to do a guide video. It's gonna be on rushing. So rushing, yeah. Sorry about that, guys. I play Clash. Haha. I have a Town Hall 11, by the way.
So today it's rushing. So, what is rushing? I wanted to answer that question, but what's oddly interesting is, well, no one cares. Now, this tutorial goes hand in hand with my dodging guide, which I made a long time ago. Probably won't be as high quality as this one, but just have a look at the video so that you know sort of how we rush, because just watching that video, you might get a pretty good idea. So the first thing to mention is, of course, the class you're going to be using, and we're not going to talk about the rogue, because he's an insufferable fag. Well, the rogue could basically solo any dungeon, because he has the ability to become invisible, which means that he's the alternative pick for rushing. But when rushing, we want to focus on speed and eyesight. This means that your level 10 paladin probably isn't the top pick for a rusher in a tomb. The speed requirements depends on your skill. For a beginner, I would say 40, maybe even maxed, and for an experienced player it could be as low as 35, or even lower than that. So choosing an ability that gives you speeding might be a good idea. But to be fair, I know that most of the people watching these videos aren't even beginners. They're pros, just judging other people that know a little about it. I was about to call myself pro, but I ain't. So the first thing you're gonna consider is if you're going to use the screen rotation or not. I don't use screen rotation when rushing, and it's because it helps me keep a good sense of where I am on the map, and it's also easier for me to see the enemies when I'm rushing. But to people that play off-center all the time, I could see why it would be useful to see more enemies in the front. But it's also important to mention that the enemies in the back also could come back to bite you in the tail, especially if you're in a tomb and a mummy is in a bad mood. Screen rotation can be useful, especially in tombs, because there's large rooms, whereas in smaller dungeons like an abyss, I wouldn't recommend rotating your screen all the time. Now for the classes, as mentioned, the rogue is very good at rushing, and the trickster and warrior are on the same page. The ninja must not be forgotten about, but he's not very good with dungeons that have a high amount of damage, unless you're like Speedy Gonzalez fast, so that the enemies won't hurt you before you get through them. Defense is another thing. I would say that it varies from situation to situation and from dungeon to dungeon whether or not you need the extra defense. My nominee for dungeon you need it is, well, the Abyss. You see this with a class like the Priest that is very good at rushing, but without a prod you would have trouble rushing an Abyss. The Knight also comes in handy since his shield can stun the enemies he runs by, and he has a very high defense. But this is where the qualities start to slow down in accordance to the classes. If a class has a DPS focused ability without any like buffs, such as the Ninja Star where you can run faster, I probably wouldn't rush with that character. Not to say that you can't, but I wouldn't risk it if I was a beginner. So at first, when I wanted to learn to rush, I maxed the Knight and just ran some mid-tier dungeons. Just get a feel of it. I doubt that you would get anything good out of rushing a pirate cave. I don't think you could like practice anything in that. No offense, but you just try your luck with abysses and get a feel of it, because it's gonna be much more scary. So to rush the abyss, all I can recommend is either speed or just very good character management. If you don't have the ability to cover your back, speed is the best you got, since the enemies are usually very slow. When entering a new rendered room in, for example, an abyss, there is a chance that you would run right through the enemies and them shooting the shots behind you because they're so slow. But this is where the demons of the abyss just fuck everything up because their DPS is so high. Also, Talwar said sometime in the past that it was better to run through the enemies than through lava. I'm sorry, but I disagree with that. If you have a horde of enemies, like a good chunk of like 10 demons on top of each other, take the lava. I mean, you would rather run through hell than through these enemies, because they will fuck you up. I mean, I've seen them fuck up 8-8 Knights before, and if an 8-8 Knight can't do it, you can't do it. Now is also a good time to say that your Nexus key should be close to WASD. I mean, you don't want to reach across your keyboard to get to numlock to teleport you to Nexus. Who would even do that? Luckily, if you're in Abyss, there's no paralysis effects or any sorts of that, because we will get into that later. It's for more advanced rushing. But as you see this gameplay, it's also a good idea to shoot behind you. So, like, the key points of this is, like, bring an ability that has some sort of buff, like either healing, damage buff, as in you have an easier time killing the enemies, stun, and maybe an electric pet to keep off the brutes. But please, God, just have an overview of the dungeon before you start rushing it, because you're gonna get jumped by the enemies if you don't know what they do. Like, that that really shows if you start rushing a dungeon like the Shatters, which is where things start to get a little more difficult. A good example of this would be the vertical path to the Forgotten King in the Shatters. I mean, if you do that rush without a speed boost of some kind, yeah, good luck to you. Trust me, I have tried, and it's, fuck. Well, I'm not a perfect rusher. I don't rush in the Lost Holes if you don't count skipping. But as soon as you get into the, like, high tier dungeons, like the Shatters, the Lost Holes, not the Tomb, you can easily rush that. I rushed that with a 0-8 Wizard, you can do it too. Up in the top tier, this is where it gets problematic. Not even a Divine Pet would get you through with the 0-8 character. And yeah, okay, fair enough. I know there's people who has done it before, but in general, and as a beginner's guide to this video, I wouldn't try it. Not, at least, if you don't use a rogue or trickster. Because you will encounter walls of bullets where you have to choose to either walk in what is in front of you or in the back. And this is where your knowledge of the dungeon comes in handy. What is in front of you? Paralysis? Armor breaking? What is to prefer? You could also start backtracking. Like, go back and just walk around the room dodging and come back to see if the enemy disappeared. And that's the issue, because if you have a low defense character or just low HP in general, and you step back into a horde of enemies that you just rushed by, yeah, this is where your dodging skills comes in handy. And yeah, I know Unomi is already in the chat saying, just dodge, lol. But no. No. And never, okay, I'm saying this, never rush when you're lagging. Never. No, you'll have to sign that contract. Sign it. Don't rush when you're lagging, okay? Also, fun fact, when you walk into an abyss, the enemies won't be active before 5 seconds has passed. So you can just push through 3 rooms without the monsters doing anything. You'll probably notice that if you have played the game at least once. Now, I know this video is loose. I know that I haven't directly stated like 4 things to do to get better at rushing. But you just watching this video might be helpful. I mean, you're watching me rush on the screen. You could also start maybe watching some more RotMG content where rushing is included, so you could get better that way. But most of all, I would recommend trying it out yourself. And always remember, like Talwa says, whatever loot you can get in that dungeon is not better than the character you're having. Or at least if it's higher than 1-8. Choose a character to rush with that you don't care that much about, but for God's sake, choose a character that is able to rush. Yeah, I know all characters are able to rush, but some of them are completely handy-capable of doing it. They're disabled, like the Wizard. He's useless. No, you know what? Just rush with a group. It's easier, it's more safe. No. What's even more safe? Forget everything I said in this video. Leech. Just stay in the back. Wait at the portal of Cowardice that they changed to purple. I don't know why, but just wait there. And wait for someone to rush it for you. And don't thank them afterwards. Great. That's a win-win. So, thank you for watching this video. I know I was about to say it was short, but it isn't. At least it was somewhat entertaining for you. And I know I haven't uploaded in a while, and that's because I'm working on a lot of secret projects that take up a lot of time, but it's graphic design, and it's gonna look awesome when it's released. It's precisely 2 weeks ago since I last uploaded, so I hope that you came in your pants when seeing this video, and I'll see you in the next one.
See ya.